Good morning and welcome. You are looking live at a Falcon 9 rocket on Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center. SpaceX is counting down to the launch of the Starlink 10-7 mission. Liftoff is scheduled for 6:37 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 10:37 UTC for our viewers around the world. We're broadcasting live from the Spaceflight Now News Bureau here at the Kennedy Space Center press site. I'm Stephen Young, and I'll be providing commentary for today's launch. Will Robinson-Smith is traveling home after his reporting trip to the West Coast. I'll be performing double duty this morning, handling the technical aspects of today's show as well as the commentary. So please bear with me if there are any pauses in commentary while I'm pushing the buttons in the background. Be sure to follow the team on social media and keep up with their launch photography and reporting. Adam Bernstein has been here for several hours setting up our cameras in the pre-dawn hours here and is getting ready to track the launch. Michael Kane has the morning off as it's the first day of school here in Florida. So good luck to all the students returning to school today, especially to Michael's son and my own grandson. We will also have tracking camera support from our friends Pete Carstens with MaxQ Productions and Chuck and Jen Briggs. We're now less than 54 minutes from the planned T0 for this Falcon 9 rocket, which is carrying 23 Starlink V2 mini satellites. If you'd like to support our coverage of the space program, please hit the like button and click subscribe so you get notifications when new videos are posted and so you don't miss any of our live streams. Also, please share this stream. It helps more people find our live coverage and everything else going on with the Spaceflight Now channel. If you'd like to help improve and expand our coverage of the space program, we would love it if you would consider making a donation through YouTube's Super Chat feature or by becoming a member of our YouTube channel. Membership grants you access to our special members-only videos as well as discounts for our online shop, shop.spaceflightnow.com. And we're also kicking off our Discord server, so you can get access to that, particularly if you're on the mission specialist level and above. We can't do these launch broadcasts without the support of our members and viewers, and we want to thank everyone who has contributed to help fund our coverage. And speaking of those who have contributed to our coverage, I want to give a big thank you to Psychonaut69, who gifted a Spaceflight Now membership. along with Callistia Lee, one of our fantastic moderators, who gifted 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. And also a special thank you to Leslie Danahel, I hope I pronounced your name correctly there, who upgraded their membership to Launch Director. Thank you very much for supporting us at that level. Also to Lisa D, who gave us a $5 super chat. So thank you, much appreciated. Really encourages us here as we cover these launches. We've been getting up in the early hours for the last 4 days now with the different launch attempts and scrubs. So we really appreciate that support. Well, with less than 50 minutes to the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket, we are reaching the point in the countdown where the launch director will poll their team inside the Launch Control Center. And about a little over 10 minutes from now, that launch director will give the result of that poll and hopefully give a go for the start of propellant load for today's launch. SpaceX is running the countdown from inside its Launch Control Center, housed inside its Hangar X facility here on Kennedy Space Center property. The building is also where Falcon boosters are refurbished and prepared for flight. Today's launch is also supported by teams at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Again, SpaceX is targeting liftoff of the Falcon 9 at 6:37 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 10:37 UTC. For those of you who were with us yesterday, you will know there was a launch attempt that reached the final minute, with the countdown being scrubbed at the T-minus 46-second mark. As is usual, SpaceX did not provide an explanation for the scrub. It described that the countdown was paused at T-minus 46 seconds. So that's the only detail we got from them yesterday. They had originally intended to launch this Falcon 9 on Saturday morning in a double-header launch. Launch would have probably occurred a little bit after the first launch of the day, which was the Starlink 8-3 mission. They had scheduled the launches just 13 minutes apart, but the reality was that they probably would have moved back the second launch to allow a period of time to be sure that the first mission had been successful and that the data from that mission had been reviewed quickly to ensure there was nothing untoward before launching the next mission. But that double header was not to be, as the rollout of this particular Falcon 9 occurred much later than would have been necessary to meet the opening of the launch window, or even the end of the launch window for that mission. So this mission ended up slipping to yesterday morning, and also ended up slipping right to the end of its 4-hour launch window, again for reasons unknown, although we did see that there were crews at the launch pad within the 3-hour mark, where we would normally have expected the pad to have been cleared. So obviously something was going on at the pad that required the attention of crews, as they were still out there working much later than would normally be expected. So they did start fueling the Falcon 9 yesterday, but as I said earlier, that attempt was halted in the final minute. So we're hoping that they have better luck this morning. If for some reason there is an issue with the countdown this morning and it occurs before the start of propellant load, they do have additional backup opportunities that run up until 9:49 a.m. Eastern Time. There's also another opportunity to launch this mission tomorrow if for some reason today does not work out. It's a beautiful morning here on Florida's Space Coast. SpaceX is taking advantage of the calm weather at this time in the morning. Typically at this time of year, afternoon thunderstorms will roll in, some of them lasting well into the evening. And yesterday was no exception. Some very strong thunderstorms in the Central Florida area. So this is an excellent time to target a launch. Also coming a little bit before sunrise this morning, so hopefully we get some spectacular views. The 45th Weather Squadron issued a forecast yesterday that predicted a 95% chance of favorable weather for launch. The only slight weather concern is for a violation of the cumulus cloud rule. That's one of the many rules designed to keep the rockets safe from a lightning strike during flight. Often when there is a very low chance of weather violation, cumulus cloud is the thing that the weather officer throws in on their chart as the slight possibility of a violation. And as of a few moments ago, everything was looking green with the weather, so weather-wise, everything looking very promising for today's launch. Just dipping into the chat briefly, want to thank Carl Northeast for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships, and James Castile for a $12 super chat. Thank you so much for your support. Let's take a look at the countdown timeline for today's Starlink mission. Around T-minus 38 minutes, the launch director will report the result of the go, no-go poll that should be currently underway as I speak. If a go is given, propellant load will start at T-minus 35 minutes. That process begins with the loading of kerosene on the first and second stages, along with liquid oxygen for the first stage. The loading of kerosene on the second stage should wrap up a little over 10 minutes after it begins. That's one of the smaller tanks on the vehicle. So at T-minus 16 minutes, we'll see the start of liquid oxygen loading on the second stage. Prior to this, we'll see the so-called big vent from the launch pad strongback. This large cloud of vapor that is a good sign that the propellant load process is continuing as normal is required to condition the feed lines in that strongback structure that runs up alongside the rocket at the pad and provides the propellant connections and other electrical and air conditioning to the vehicle. Those lines are chilled for that start of liquid oxygen loading. The next big milestone comes at the T-minus 7 minute mark with the chill down of the 9 Merlin first stage engines. This involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps. This process protects those engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during the startup sequence. About 6 minutes prior to launch, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. And then at T-minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the start of the process to retract the strongback from the Falcon 9 vehicle. It will recline to an angle of about 1.5 degrees, leaning back ever so slightly from the Falcon 9. It will stay there until liftoff, when the strongback pulls away in a more rapid fashion, which clears the way for the vertical climb of the Falcon 9 off the pad. In the final minutes of the countdown, the first stage liquid oxygen tank will be filled at about T-minus 3 minutes. 2 minutes before launch, liquid oxygen loading should be complete on the second stage. At that point, the Falcon 9 will be fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellants. In the final 60 seconds of the countdown, control will be handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers. The propellant tanks will be brought up to pressure. At about T-minus 45 minutes, the launch director will give their final go for liftoff. And then with just 3 seconds left on the clock, the engine ignition command will be issued. If all 9 of those Merlin 1D engines ignite and are healthy, the flight computer will command hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9. And we will have liftoff, which right now is targeted for 6:37 a.m. Eastern Time. Well, by this time in the countdown, the SpaceX launch director should have given their go for the start of propellant load. However, we at this point do not have any updates from SpaceX. That propellant load sequence will begin with the loading of kerosene on both the first and second stages, and liquid oxygen on the first stage. If SpaceX is proceeding with today's launch attempt, that should now be underway. In the background there at the pad, you can see one of the helicopters, either the NASA security helicopter or a Coast Guard helicopter patrolling the launch danger area offshore. And we are starting to see signs of vapor at the launch pad, a good sign that propellant load is underway. You can see in this zoomed in view there was a cloud of vapor down towards the base of the rocket near the behind the tower that's used for crews accessing Dragon capsules. We should start to see a band of frost and vapor form on the first stage of the rocket if everything is proceeding as planned. And we do have word from SpaceX that propellant load is indeed underway and that the weather is looking good for this morning's launch. And you can indeed start to see the vapor that is caused by the humid Florida air coming into contact with the fuselage of the first stage of the Falcon 9, which as it is loaded with propellants starts to get cold. It is an insulated tank, but it contains some very cold propellant, and that does create those clouds of vapor that you can just about see now on the left-hand side of the booster. We're also starting to see the buildup of a ring of frost, which serves as a very good fuel gauge as the rocket is loaded with that super chilled liquid oxygen. We're also starting to see the first hint of light in the sky here in Florida. Sunrise coming a little over 13 minutes after the planned launch this morning. Big thank you to everyone who is joining us for our live coverage this morning. If you haven't done so already, please hit the like button on this stream. It really helps us out. Brings our coverage to a wider audience. We're now less than 30 minutes to the launch of this Falcon 9 rocket with 23 V2 Mini Starlink satellites. This will be the 17th flight of this particular booster, which has the tail number B1073. It first launched back on May 14th, 2022 on its first Starlink mission, 4-15, sending up 53 of the version 1.5 Starlink satellites to orbit. Next up was a C-band communications satellite for CES on June 29th. That was followed by a pair of Starlink satellite missions on August 10th and September 24th. Those were followed by the launch of the Hakuto R mission lander on December 11th. That launch went as planned, but unfortunately the lunar lander crash landed on the moon. On February 7th, 2023, B1073 launched Amazonas Nexus, a Spanish communications satellite for Hispasat. That was followed by a mission to the International Space Station with the Commercial Resupply Services, or CRS-27 launch on March 15th. Missions 8 through 13 were all Starlink launches. Those were Starlink Group 6-2, 5-11, 6-12, 6-27, 6-37, and 6-41. That was followed by the first mid-inclination orbit rideshare mission, which SpaceX called Bandwagon 1. That launched on April 7th of this year. The most recent missions for this booster were Starlink's 6-58 and 8-9, that most recent launch happening on July 3rd of this year. At this point in the countdown, the loading of cryogenic helium is underway into pressure vessels on both the first and second stages of the rocket. The process began with the first stage about 6 minutes ago and began within the last minute or so on the second stage. That helium is vital for the performance of the rocket as it provides the pressurization for the propellant tanks during flight. We're also coming up on the so-called big vent. That's the start of the chill down of the strung back propellant lines prior to the start of liquid oxygen loading on the second stage. You can see the progress of liquid oxygen load by the bands of frost that are gradually creeping their way up the tank on the first stage. Looking like a little under halfway there at the moment. Getting some spectacular views across the Turn Basin here as the sun rises on Florida's Space Coast. The Falcon 9 uses kerosene and liquid oxygen. The kerosene fuel is a highly refined rocket-grade kerosene that is known as Rocket Propellant 1, or RP1 for short. The oxygen, the oxidizer, is super chilled, and by doing that it densifies the oxygen so SpaceX can pack in more propellants and gain more performance than is possible with the more standard liquid oxygen used on other rockets. Just a few wispy clouds here visible in our view from the press site as Dawn's first light is visible on the horizon. And there we see the start of the big vent. Begins a little bit earlier at pad 39A than we're perhaps used to seeing at pad 40. Once again, that's the start of the chill down. Of those propellant lines that run up the white strongback structure that sits alongside the vehicle at the launch pad. That strongback structure will move away from the vehicle in the final minutes of the countdown and then swing further back at the moment of liftoff. The weather conditions remain ideal for liftoff this morning. No violations have been noted. The next major milestone will be the start of liquid oxygen load on the second stage, which will get underway after that vent is complete. Get a view of a helicopter in the background there patrolling. Just gorgeous views this morning with the sunrise as a backdrop for this vent from the strongback structure. We're at T-minus 70 minutes, 30 seconds. SpaceX counting down to a 6:37 a.m. liftoff of the Falcon 9. We're nearing the conclusion of this vent. And there we see the vent tapering off. That's now complete. That clears the way for the start of the loading of liquid oxygen onto the second stage. The loading of kerosene was completed a little under 10 minutes ago. Meanwhile, loading of kerosene and oxygen aboard the first stage continues. And with the clock now under the 16-minute mark, that process of loading the second stage should be underway. T-minus 14 minutes and 53 seconds and counting. Well, with approaching 14 minutes on the clock, let's take a look at the trajectory for this mission. The Falcon 9 will lift off from the pad at Launch Complex 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, located on Florida's east coast. It will fly a northeast trajectory. You can hear that helicopter in the background. We'll head offshore along the Atlantic coast of the United States. Following stage separation, the first stage will land on one of SpaceX's 3 drone ships, the one on deck this morning is A Shortfall of Gravitas. The drone ship is stationed about 385 miles downrange in the Atlantic, and that's about 250 miles east of Charleston, South Carolina. Meanwhile, the upstage will continue on with the Starlink satellites. The fairing halves will jettison a bit further and land in the ocean a bit further downrange from the booster landing site. Is a view from a SpaceX presentation that shows how the fairings gently drop to the ocean under a parasail-like parachute. And here's a photo of the recovery operation. The recovery vehicle for this morning's mission is the Go Cosmos vessel. It's a fairly new addition to the fairing recovery fleet. Let's take a closer look at the Falcon 9 rocket. It stands 70 meters or 229 feet tall and has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. The bottom 2/3 of the rocket is the first stage. Today's first stage booster has flown 16 times before. It's designated Booster 1073 in the SpaceX fleet. At the base of the first stage are the 9 Merlin 1D engines, which burn rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen to produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs that will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Above the first stage is the interstage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core surrounded by carbon fiber. In the inset image, you can also see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it falls through the atmosphere tail first, like a dart. At the top of the interstage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. At first stage main engine cutoff, high pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushes ensure it's a clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is safely housed inside that interstage adapter until stage separation. The upper stage is powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine or MVAC engine. It's equipped with a nozzle optimized for burns in the vacuum of space. It produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust. It will be fired twice on today's flight to place the 23 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same propellant mix, kerosene and liquid oxygen, as the first stage. At the very top of the rocket is the payload fairing containing the 23 Starlink satellites. The payload fairing is made of a carbon composite material. The 2 halves will be recovered a little further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They will gently splash down under those paracels. The chill down of the 9 Merlin 1D engines should have got underway about 40 seconds ago. That process prevents any thermal shock at the moment of ignition. Now less than 5 minutes to launch. Soon be seeing the start of strong back retract at the launch pad.
Maintains are pressing for strong back retract.
And we're now getting audio from SpaceX, and as you just caught there, the process of the strong back retraction has begun. Hearing the sounds of venting at the launch pad.
Strong back lower has started.
You should start to see that strong back structure move away from the vehicle. Got some views coming in from SpaceX's pad cameras that show that. Strong back structure you can now see has moved away from the vehicle. It's at an angle of about 1.5 degrees. At liftoff, hydraulics
Stage 1 lock float is complete.
We'll pull that strong back. Hearing the completion of liquid oxygen load on the first stage. The second stage should be full very shortly. You can see the water tower being topped off to ensure there's a full load for the water deluge system.
Stage 2 lock float is complete.
We're also seeing the start of the ground closeouts, the purging of all those fuel lines. As we count down to the final minute here, the Falcon 9's onboard
Gas launch
computers,
closeouts has started.
the Falcon 9's onboard computers will take control of the countdown. The SpaceX call's coming to us with about a 10-second delay.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
We have
LDE go for launch.
confirmation from the launch director that they are go for launch. Now less than 30 seconds to the liftoff of the Falcon 9. Fifteen seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition And liftoff. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 on the Starlink 10-7 mission. And the Falcon 9 has cleared the tower. Starting to hear the rumble of the 9 Merlin engines. Let's listen in. Falcon 9 is now passed through the sound barrier and is approaching max Q.
Impact chill has started.
That call is for the chill down of the second stage engine. Getting great views from Chuck Briggs' tracking camera here. There you see separation of the
Main engine
first
cutoff.
stage and ignition on the second stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there we see that actual separation
Impact
and
ignition.
coming in on the SpaceX webcast. Views now from Peak Costons. And you can see that plume in the sky as it hits the sunlight at high altitude.
Fairing separation confirmed.
See the pulses of the engine, the thrusters, the coal gas thrusters on the first stage as it prepares to make its way back down. Spectacular sunrise effects. Chuck Briggs capturing
Both
the
vehicles
first
are on a
and
nominal
second
trajectory.
stage. And you can see in this view the first stage camera on the left and the upper stage, second stage camera on on the right upper box, and the lower right box shows the upper stage engine, The view in the main screen is from Chuck Briggs's tracking camera. That second stage still visible in the skies. View on the top right showing the view from inside the fairing. Sorry, inside the interstage, I should say. Now, a little over 5.5 minutes into the flight, the first stage has reached its apogee and is starting to descend, approaching the entry burn here.
Both vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
That is visible in any of our tracking cameras. Bring that to you if we do get that. That entry burn slams on the brakes. Keep an eye on the speedometer there.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
And we can see a view of that entry burn coming from Pete Costin's tracking camera. Looks like it just went behind some clouds. The view from the onboard cameras showing the burn.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
Completing, and you can see that really slammed on the brakes. The speed has dropped dramatically. That burn is essential to avoid the first stage overheating as it re-enters the atmosphere. The second stage continues on its flight, now traveling at over 17,500 kilometers
Both stages
per
are following
hour.
a nominal trajectory.
SpaceX reporting that nominal trajectory. First stage
Stage 1, transonic.
now traveling less than the speed of sound, 6 kilometers above the Atlantic, heading towards the drone ship. Shortfall of Gravitas is awaiting its arrival. It's located about 250 miles east of Charleston, South Carolina.
Stage 1, landing burn.
As ignition, waiting for the drone ship to come into view.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Getting views from the deck of the drone ship.
Stage 1, landing leg deploy.
And there we have it, touchdown.
Stage 1, landing confirmed.
Booster completing its 17th mission. Meanwhile, the second stage continues to fire.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
MVAC shutdown.
And we have confirmation the second stage has completed its first burn. We did not hear a call for a good orbit insertion. However, sometimes that call does not come in before SpaceX ends its webcast. So the second stage will complete the job of placing these 23 Starlink satellites into orbit. It's now in a coast phase that will last until about 55 minutes after launch, then there's a very short 2-second burn to circularize the orbit, and that will be followed about 9 minutes after the completion of that burn by the separation of the 23 Starlink satellites. So this launch caps a very busy 4 days for SpaceX. They made an attempt to launch the Starlink 8-3 mission from Pad 40 on Friday, but that attempt was thwarted by poor weather in the recovery zone because of the after effects of Tropical Storm Debbie, which prevented them launching that day. Then on Saturday they hoped for a doubleheader, 2 launches, the delayed launch from Pad 40 followed by the 10-7 mission that we saw finally launch today. However, those plans didn't quite work out, and SpaceX had to give up on a launch attempt for 10-7 on Saturday. However, it was able to launch 8-3 successfully, and that was followed by the first launch attempt for this mission, which was scrubbed at the T-minus 46-second mark yesterday. But today things went a lot better, and the Falcon 9 lifted off right on time at 6:37 a.m. Also, we had some West Coast action with the launch of the Arctic Satellite Broadband mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. That launch occurring at 7:02 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:02 p.m. Eastern Time last night. So SpaceX getting off 3 launches and also making 2 scrubbed attempts. So a very busy weekend, long weekend for the SpaceX launch team. So I really appreciate you joining us for this morning's coverage. It's not an easy thing to do these broadcasts, and without Will, we certainly miss him. But he'll be back for launch coverage, commentary later in the week. The next launch from the Cape could be as early as Thursday morning. We had excellent support from our tracking team. Adam Bernstein operating the cameras here at the press site. Chuck and Jen Briggs and Pete Carstens. A beautiful backdrop to this morning's launch from the Space Coast sunrise. Also want to give a big thank you to our team of moderators. Know we had Callistia Lee working hard to keep the chat on track, and we really appreciate all her efforts. So before we sign off here, I just want to thank Psychonaut69 for gifting another Spaceflight Now membership. We couldn't do these broadcasts without the support of our members. So thank you for all the support you offer us. It really enables us to bring you these spectacular views. Quite a stunning backdrop visible from across the Indian River Lagoon from Chuck Briggs's tracking camera. Looking, you can see the strong back gradually coming back into position here. So with that, I want to wish you a very happy Monday. From the Kennedy Space Center reporting for Spaceflight Now, I'm Stephen Young.